Hello and welcome. In this video, we are going to quickly talk about what we are going to build and also the services. Okay, so we just describe what will be built in this course, the application we are going to build, and then also we talk about the different services. Okay, so what are we going to build in this course? We're going to build a freelance marketplace where sellers can create gigs and buyers can purchase gigs or purchase custom gigs. Okay, so that's just the basic idea. We are going to create a freelance marketplace that will involve buyers and sellers. Okay, so buyers can become sellers and sellers can also become buyers. But the basic idea, when a user creates an account or signs up or registers in the application, they are going to be created as a buyer, and then they will have the option in the application to become a seller. So they can create an account and then become a seller. They'll be able to communicate with sellers, and then sellers as well can become buyers. They can contact other sellers to purchase gigs as well. Now, note that we are not going to build every feature that is required in the freelance marketplace, but we are just going to build the ones that I think that are important for us for learning purposes. Okay, so we are going to build that. What we are going to build is a freelance marketplace. Now let's talk about the services that we are going to have, or the subdomains. So the freelance marketplace we are going to build, what are the subdomains? Now when I say subdomains, I mean the different services that we are going to have. We're going to have, as you know, we are going to have an API gateway. Okay, so the API gateway will be like the entry point to the microservices. It's going to be a microservice on its own, but it's going to be what will establish communication between the client and our microservices. But for the other microservices, we are going to have the notification service. Now the notification service will handle sending emails to users. Now for this application, the notification is only going to be via emails. We are not going to create any push notification or any other form of notification. It's only going to be sending emails to users. So when a user creates an account, they get an email to confirm their email. And then maybe when they purchase a gig, or when an order is completed, when a seller completes an order, a message is sent to the buyer that, okay, this seller has delivered your order. Or maybe when a purchase is made, a seller will be notified that, okay, this buyer bought your gig. So the notification service will just handle sending emails to users. We're going to have our auth service. Now this handles user authentication. Okay, so users will need to be authenticated. For now, we are only going to be using email and username authentication. Okay, when they create an account, they'll create a username, and they can also log in with their email or their username. Okay, so this will handle all user authentication. Then we have our users service. Now this users service, I decided to just merge the sellers and the buyers into one service. This will just handle the sellers and the buyers profile. Okay, for this I merged these two features, buyers and sellers, into one because I didn't want to have too many services. Okay, that is just the only reason why. There are some services I could have just split, maybe separated and made a service on its own, or features that I could have just made a service on its own. But because I didn't want to have too many services, because this is a tutorial, and having too many services could lead to maybe too many errors that I might not be able to handle. Okay, so I decided to merge some features together. For example, the sellers and the buyers. Like I already said earlier, when a user creates an account, they automatically become a seller. They automatically become a buyer. And then once they log in, they will have the option of becoming a seller by creating a seller's profile. So the user service will handle sellers and buyers profile. Then we have the gig service. Now the gig service will handle CRUD operations related to the gig. A seller creating a gig, getting a gig, updating a gig, or deleting a gig. Now for this gig service, and also the auth service, we are going to connect those to Elasticsearch. Okay, we are going to save our gigs. Every gig that will be created by the seller will be saved to Elasticsearch. Okay, because we want to have a very powerful search engine to use. I figured if we use MongoDB, we are going to save the data in MongoDB. The search feature is not that powerful, not that elegant, so it's better to use Elasticsearch. Though all of these services as well will be connected to Elasticsearch, because we are going to use Elasticsearch and Kibana for monitoring and logging. Okay, so the gig service will handle the gig CRUD operations. Then we'll have a chat service. This will handle buyers and sellers messaging. So a buyer can contact the seller and the seller can respond. Okay, and then we have the order service. Now this is another service that I combined both orders and payment. Normally in a real application, you would want to create a separate service on its own, because maybe you want to have multiple payment gateways. Here we are only going to use one payment gateway for now, which we are going to use Stripe. And that is why, because the payment gateway is just one, I decided to merge it with the orders. So in the order service, we will have the orders and the payment. Normally you could decide later, okay, I want to separate the payment service. It will be a service on its own. And then lastly, we'll have the reviews and the rating service. So this will handle the reviews and ratings. So buyers will be able to rate sellers, and then sellers as well will be able to rate buyers. Okay, so these are the different services. Like I already explained, because I didn't want to have too many services, that was why I merged some services. Here we have 7 services. Then if I add the API gateway, 8. Now imagine if I separate the orders and the payments, then that will be around 9 services. Then the sellers and the buyer, I separate that. Okay, and then maybe some other services, you add new services. It could become too, for learning purposes, it could become too much. So I decided to merge some services. So these are the subdomains or the services that we are going to create. Don't forget, we have the API gateway. It's not defined here, but we have the API gateway, which is like the most important part of the microservice.